Good evening. Good evening, everybody. And welcome to another live stream. Let me sort this out. Yes. Okay. And here we are. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Saturday evening live stream from the Netherlands. Don't know what part of the world you are, but welcome anyway. There's Lone Wolf. Hello, Lone Wolf. Glad you could make it. Yes, so all week I was thinking about what would be the topic of my live stream tonight. And yeah, there was a few articles that pissed me off so much that I dedicate this live stream to that topic, which is the dirty bias against Max Verstappen by certain magazines. Hello, Christina. Glad you could make it. I'm just gonna rant for about 5 minutes before I start with the proper content. If you're watching this stream later, then maybe you can skip to say 5-6 minutes in to get the real content. Because this is just me preparing the stream, seeing who's coming in. If you're watching, please say hi in the chat so I know you're there. I'm also giving away 10 free memberships for a month because it's June, and every month I'm allowed to give away 10 free subscriptions, monthly subscriptions. Let me try that now. Hey, Vegas. Okay, so I'm in the way of the Madrid live streaming, Vegas. And you're still here. Very good. Okay. Here's the 5 first free memberships. They might get a notification. Slipstream Merchant, Ariel Puyol Goya, Fibitabit, Suicidal Sheep, and Philip West. Some of the names I already know. They've had memberships before. So how's everybody doing? Yeah, it's mostly hype, isn't it, Vegas? It always is. Yeah, so there was just a few articles that I noticed on Twitter that really, really pissed me off. And I tweeted about it, and a lot of people agreed with me. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to vent my own frustrations about the said articles that have been written, what I think they're trying to do with Max Verstappen, and why I don't like it. So that's what I'm going to do this stream. Hey, Samantha. Hey, Hank. No, Hank, I haven't started very long. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. And I can give away another 5 free memberships. I'm just going to do that now to get it out of the way, so I don't forget. Vincenzo Di Grande, Aidita Naik, Edu Jack Daniels, Thomas, and Tommy McLeod. The crown thing, Samantha, is something new that YouTube invented. At the end of the stream, the person who had the most chat messages will get the number one crown. Christina, I don't think articles from Autosport and race fans, they're not really the clickbait sites. You know, like Racing News 365, that's a clickbait site. And the English tabloids like The Sun and The Mirror, they do an awful lot of clickbait. But Autosport is a renowned magazine, and for them to write what they did, yeah, it's just not on. So, and it's 5 minutes past 8. I've got 21 people watching. So I'm just going to start. Okay, so let's start with what happened. Last race in Spain, Max Verstappen at the last safety car saw the other two McLarens pit, and they decided, and Max decided that they wanted to pit him again, but they only had used soft tires left and one set of hards. Now, the whole weekend, the hards weren't used because they were too hard. But yeah, Red Bull put him on those tires anyway, and Max struggled on them to get the heat into them. And on the straight, we had Charles Leclerc, always a very fair fighter, kind of drive into the side of him because he wanted to get off the marbles, which he admitted later. So that rattled Max, and he was like, "He just smashed into me, or he just rammed into me." Nothing came of that. Then, in the first turn after the straight, George Russell tried his luck, even though there was a car in front of him. And yeah, he was out of control with his car and forced Max off the track. He took the escape route, and Max firmly believed that he was in the right, and he kept that place until GP came over the radio and said, "You have to give that position back." And he was like, "What the fuck? I was ahead and he forced me off track." And he goes, "Those are the rules." That's what the GP said. So obviously he was very cross, and he slowed down in another turn. Don't know which one. And when George Russell was nearly past him, he accelerated and wheel banged into him. Now, first I thought he did it 100% on purpose. But thinking about it later, there might be a possibility that he was trying to cling on to George Russell to overtake him as quickly as possible again. That's a possibility. And it just went wrong because those tires didn't have the grip. In any case, the stewards looked at it, and they probably couldn't decisively say that it was 100% on purpose. So they only gave Max a 10-second penalty for leaving, for causing a collision, instead of a drive-through for like purposely driving into somebody. So yeah, that 10-second penalty that caused Max to finish P10, only scoring 1 point, and now he's 48 points behind Piastri, and his championship is pretty much over. That's okay. So the whole British media, they freaked out, and they said he did it on purpose, and he deserved to get a black flag. Nico Rosberg on Sky Sports F1 on the commentary team, he said the same thing. That's a red flag or a black flag. He should have been out of the race, which would have made 1 point difference. Then Max got 3 points on his license, and that brings him up to 11 points, which is nearly a race ban. But obviously the usual suspects, they wanted more, and there's even people saying that he should have been disqualified for the whole season because that's what happened to Michael Schumacher when he crashed into Jacques Villeneuve on purpose. So that's the backstory of what happened. Let me go to the chat before I go into the next chapter. Hank says Verstappen gets villainized big time for 10 years already. And Vegas says, I guess I missed something. And Samantha says, I can't wait to see the crown. As a Ferrari fan, I thank Red Bull for a masterclass Ferrari blunder. Yeah, it's nice to see somebody else do it for once, isn't it, Christina? And there's Mavadelo. Hello. Hello, Mavadelo. And Hank says the other choice was to stay out on 8 laps old softs. Yeah, that was a hard choice as well. But he would have had track position. He could have terrorized the McLaren duo for a bit. But anyway, yeah, Christina, you have a very good point here. But can they prove it was on purpose? That's the important part. Now, George Russell got a drive-through penalty in Monaco because he cut the corner, and then he literally said on the radio, I'm just going to keep going. I'll take the penalty. And that's pretty much admitting that he did it on purpose, which he did. But Max said no such thing. Jungle Boogie 78 says the problem is that the official F1 channel has this extremely biased reporting. I don't know if I agree with that. You know, I find people like Laura Winter and Lawrence Barretto and Ariana Bravo, and who else have we got there? Jolyon Palmer. I find them very based and very fair, but Sky Sports F1 and Autosport and Motorsport, they're the British biased outlets. And there's a guy called Stubb. G'day Stubb. Glad you could make it. Yeah, so that brings me to the next chapter, and that's when everybody had their say on what happened. Autosport felt the need to post this. Now, I'm just going to screen share here, so my screen's going to get funky for a second here. And here's the article. Okay, F1 has a Verstappen problem and keeps ignoring it. Having left Max Verstappen's racing moves unpunished or leniently sanctioned over and over again, the FIA and F1 have just reinforced his above-the-law status. And it's written by a guy called Fabien Galliard. Doesn't sound English. For years, the Formula One paddock has been praising Max Verstappen, and rightfully so. Everyone is aware of his glorious achievements and his remarkable record. The Red Bull driver keeps amazing crowds with his talent, utterly dominating seasons, grabbing pole positions when his car shouldn't be in contention, winning races as a dark horse, or making unlikely overtaking moves sticks. Okay, so here they're just being really positive about him. And then it starts. The thing is, there's a dark side to Verstappen, and he doesn't even really conceal it. But many in the media, his team and his fan base pretend not to be aware of it, or just ignore it. This dark side emerged again on Sunday under intense pressure. Okay, so here's what I just talked about, what he did. And then they talk about how this isn't the first time that Max done something unsportsmanlike. And then they talk about the brake testing that he did to Hamilton. He repeatedly runs his rivals off the track. And the governing bodies have undeniably failed to address how frequent and intentional Verstappen's behavior is, and they won't even connect the dots to call a spade, to call a deliberate move a deliberate move, whether they're ignoring it on purpose or through thoughtlessness, nobody knows. And then they talk about the stewards, how they explain things, and I agree with the stewards that there's no 100% evidence that he did it on purpose. But anyway, they pretty much laugh at the FIA for not fixing it. And then they talk about what George Russell did in Monaco, completely ignoring that the Mercedes driver did admit it. And then they go on about Verstappen. Verstappen has always been an extremely polarizing character. Many believe, or pretend to, that is just due to his elbows out racing style, viewed as a logical symptom of his hunger for victory. However, his actions often go far beyond hard but fair, and he obviously stands by them the way he usually speaks post-race. Some will be keen to deem the Spanish incident as a mere instance of briefly losing composure, yet it just adds to all the previous episodes when Verstappen didn't get the penalties he deserved. Surely the four-time world champion, who naturally is an extreme confident athlete, is aware, more or less consciously, that when he acts this way he never loses out. Penalties on a case-by-case basis have never solved the problem, as his Barcelona move shows. Verstappen brilliantly makes the most out of the system's grey areas where he deems it necessary or feels disrespected, taking things way beyond limits. This is not about whether a move was completed with four wheels off the track, if a driver moved on the braking or was ahead at the apex. This is about colliding on purpose, unsportsmanlike behavior, onboard's 800 kilo cars reaching 200 miles per hour. The Verstappen problem is a serious one, and the FIA and F1 must now diligently address it. Right. So basically they're saying the FIA and F1 have been lax, and Verstappen should get definitely a ban or even disqualified from a whole season for all the mean things that he did. Now, the first thing that I find really unfair is that they're talking about this incident being in an 800 kilogram car at 200 miles an hour. But it was pretty much the slowest corner out of the whole race. And both could continue without any damage. It was actually quite a precise and well, I'm not going to say well thought out move, but it was pretty much nothing, you know. And they all finished in the same position that they were in when he let him through. What was really, really dangerous is what Charles Leclerc did to Max Verstappen on the straight. At that speed, if those wheels had got together, and you know how sometimes one wheel goes over the other and both lose control, that could have been a very, very serious, nasty accident. Luckily, that didn't happen, but nobody talks about that anymore. You know, they just talk about Max Verstappen. And Autosport is the magazine that wrote an open letter to Max Verstappen before the Abu Dhabi 2021 final to make sure that the race was finished racing, and please, 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 Max Verstappen, don't take Lewis Hamilton out because we know you're ahead with your race wins, and you don't need to you don't need a win. You could just score no points, and Lewis Hamilton can score no points, and then you'll still be champion. That was the sort of gist of it, but it just shows how biased they are, you know. So what they're saying basically here is that the penalty system with the points adding all up together isn't really a cure, because Max Verstappen is way too smart and he outsmarts everybody, and he can do all these vile things, and nothing will come of it. But the thing is that if you add up all these penalty points that he gathered, there's one from Brazil where he drove a little bit too fast behind the virtual safety car. Um, there was 2 points for leaving the track in Jeddah with that fight with Oscar Piastri. But those margins were so tiny. Like, if the FIA had taken the apex of that incident in Jeddah with Oscar Piastri, if they'd taken the apex from a different spot, then Max would have been ahead and he was allowed to cut the corner. So it was definitely not a dirty move. And I also don't understand why the 2 penalty points were given for that. And case by case situation, you can look at the points he gathered. And I think the only fair points were the Mexico race, where he just overtook Lando Norris in a way that wasn't allowed, and then stayed ahead of him until he got the 10-second penalty and the other 10-second penalty. That deserved a couple of penalty points. And then this incident, that deserved a couple of penalty points. But for the rest, it's all just making Max the villain and trying to influence the F1 and FIA to punish Max Verstappen harder, because that's what they want to see. And I just don't think that's fair. Like, either treat every incident the way you treat Max Verstappen's incident, or be as lenient to Max Verstappen as you are to other drivers. Because all the cases that they blow up about Max Verstappen, like moving on the braking just before he takes a turn, I've seen Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris do that afterwards as well. Pushing drivers off track, I've seen Lewis Hamilton do that in the Chinese Grand Prix against Max Verstappen in 2018, where Lewis Hamilton pretended to have a little bit of oversteer and pushed Max Verstappen off track. And the only one who talked about that was Hughes from the race. What do you call him? I forgot his first name. Mark Hughes. So yeah, that being ahead of on the apex and pushing a driver trying to overtake off the track because you got track position, that's as old as racing. That's something that happens in karting, but they're trying to make it seem like Max Verstappen invented this and it should be stopped. And yeah, like I said a couple of times, it's just not fair. Okay, I'm going into the chat now to see what's happening. There's a lot of talking. Let me see. Christina says Max is too smart to admit it. That's right. Okay, Hank says that it was discussed up front. Okay. Lone Wolf, I thought I was sharing the right screen. Hank says Hamilton was always protected by the Brits. Okay, Christina says sometimes I think some of those British biased people would love Monaco types of races, just parading around without any racing. Yes, and then all the British drivers finish 1, 2, and 3. And hello, Jasper from Unraced F1. I know Max as well as his dad and granddad Franz. How about all those journalists and fans? I'm not a fan of Max, by the way. I know you're not a fan. That big meanie, says Stubb. Christina says, yes, let's ban overtaking. That way drivers won't do dirty moves. Yes, just develop the best car. Then put AI in it. And then the drivers can steer the cars from where they're standing. From the garage. That's cool. Jungle Boogie says, no one except Peter Windsor talked about that 300 kilometer per hour bump. Actually, that's where I got it from. And then I saw the replay, and it looked really dangerous. But afterwards, Ray says, off topic, isn't Autosport that platform that announced to stop with their physical magazine? Oh yeah, probably. And they need their income from impressions on Twitter and the magazine online. Christina is talking about the penalty points he gathered. Yeah, Peter Windsor is getting a bit of praise here. Jungle Boogie says, to me, it also feels like Max is being punished too harsh. Everything he does slightly wrong is being dramatized out of proportion, while all he does is make F1 mildly interesting. And Unray says, maybe the reverse grid is an option to see how it would go racing and the micromanaging. Yeah, I don't like gimmicks. I like F1 the way it is, but the media just needs to treat all drivers the same. Which they don't, because the next article I'm going to show, Motorsport posted the same article, and that's an even bigger magazine. And then the next article is from Race Fans, and they're doing something even more dodgy. So I hope you guys can see this. Let me see if that goes okay. Wait, stay on this? That's weird. It should capture the whole screen. That's really strange, because it should show the whole screen. Let me fix this. I'm just going to remove. Okay, and then I'm going to add it again. Okay. Is that better, guys? I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds. And Unraised, thank you for the €2. Yes, that's looking much better. I'm checking this on my TV. Yes. Okay. So this was the article that I read out earlier. Yeah. F1 has a Verstappen problem and keeps ignoring it. And I was reading all this out, and you guys couldn't see it. Such a waste. But I hope you guys were listening well enough. Okay. This is from Race Fans. Yes? And we see a picture here of Dominicali and Max Verstappen. Is Verstappen too big to ban? in Formula One's show business era. Since Formula One introduced its penalty point system in 2014, drivers have known they risk triggering an automatic one race ban if they incur stewards' wrath too often. And then they talk about how Kevin Magnussen took 10 years, and then finally a driver got banned. And Max Verstappen could be the next driver to do this. Okay. Here we see everything. Okay. Now, basically, what Race Fans is doing here. Okay, so they finish here by saying Verstappen can expect his driving to come under even fiercer scrutiny than before over the coming weekends. But if he does slip up again, the steward's reaction will be studied just as closely. So basically what Race Fans is doing here is already setting up a mood that if Max Verstappen does something wrong, the FIA won't give him a penalty point because Max Verstappen is too big to ban. And obviously, Race Fans and what do you call them? Autosport. They will scream that the FIA is favoring Max Verstappen because they're already saying that. And I just find it really annoying that it's not enough that Max Verstappen already incurred 11 penalty points, but they want the FIA to go even a step further. And obviously, by any type of incident where it's possible to give penalty points, they'll be screaming that Max Verstappen deserves penalty points. I don't think if Max does something wrong, the FIA will be careful not to give him a penalty point because it doesn't make a difference to them whether he drives or not. Pierre Gasly he was on 10 penalty points for a long time. It could be last season or 2 seasons ago. Obviously, there wasn't that much attention for him. And then Pierre Gasly kept it really clean for a long time. And, he lost a couple of penalty points and then dropped down all the way to nothing. So, yeah. I just think it's really unfair to already put pressure on the FIA to make sure that Max gets banned. It's just not fair because they need to look at every incident regardless of who does it. And there's been so many situations where people deserved a penalty point and didn't get it. And there's been situations where people didn't deserve a penalty point and did get them. So, So, did I get the right screen in the end? Or still not? I think I did. See? Mm-hmm. See, I can see it now on my TV. Yeah, that worked. Okay, good. Hello, Tanveer. Welcome to the stream. Mavadelo says, depends on Oh, you're talking to Christina. Hank says only from a minor part of the race fans. The majority is English based, biased, and will be okay with it. Tanvir was teaching his younger brother how a vowel sounds. Okay. Christina says people are delusional. They were dissecting even situations where he deserved the penalty, like Saudi. Yeah, yeah, it's a weird one. But yeah, that Autosport. Oh god, really hate them. Every opportunity they get, they pounce on him, and they do it with first they give him a load of praise, and then the agenda sets in. You know, uh, the what they really want comes out, and that's well Max out of F1. That's what they want to make it easier. And you know what? The day that Max leaves F1, first they'll start talking about how you know Max's championships were tainted by the Abu Dhabi race and then the budget cap, and then in 2023 he had the most dominant car, and then maybe 2024, yeah, that was one championship he deserved, and then if Max is out of the sport longer, um, they'll probably start hitting on somebody else because, mind you, if Oscar Piastri starts winning championships or Charles Leclerc starts winning championships, the British media will do exactly the same thing, especially if they're up against George Russell and Lando Norris or Max Verstappen. Um, Jungle Boogie says, so I can safely say they just hate Max because he's too good and not British. It's as simple as that. Um, we've seen head loss moves from English drivers before, like a driver like Nigel Mansell. He got into actual fist fights with drivers, and he was running after a driver at one point and tumbling over, and he was always screaming and shouting at officials and his team and whatever, and he's revered as the lion. You know, they think he's cool. And then if you look at all the falling out Lewis Hamilton did with teammates and the way he left Mercedes for Ferrari and the way things are going at Ferrari now, um, I haven't heard one British outlet say Lewis Hamilton is washed and maybe he was never that good, which is pretty reasonable, you know, because he needed that dominant engine in Mercedes to win all these championships. Um, but instead, they're tumbling over each other to give excuses why Lewis Hamilton isn't getting anywhere. It's the hybrid era. No, not the hybrid era. The ground effect era doesn't suit Lewis Hamilton's driving style. Then there's a communication problem at Ferrari, and that's why it's not happening. And the list just goes bigger and bigger, and Lewis Hamilton gets coddled by the British media all the time. And it's funny because before the season started, I've read articles saying why it's exactly the right time for Lewis Hamilton to join Ferrari. And they pretty much counted the 8th title for Lewis Hamilton already. Then there's Lando Norris, and he gets coddled a lot as well. You know, I've seen what do you call him? Will Buxton pull faces at Zach Brown when he talked about how they have two number one drivers and he didn't like to favor Norris over Piastri because that would destroy Piastri's confidence. And that's just a British guy trying to push a British driver forward. Uh, Whenever Norris does something wrong, they're always carefully telling him that he needs to do better, and they're always talking about how much they appreciate how he wears his heart on his sleeve and how honest he is. And yeah, Oscar Piastri never does much wrong, so he's not getting any hate yet, but I'm sure that can change. Um, George Russell, um, everybody outside of Britain, except for rocket powered Mohawk, calls him Osama bin Russell because of the terror he's been putting onto drivers from 2022 to 2024. It's only this season that he's sort of calmed down. So he gets protected a lot as well. But yeah, when it comes to Max, it was like they were waiting for something like this to happen. And, they couldn't pounce on him since Mexico. So all this time they were waiting, and they had to give him credit for still pulling out wins in this below par car. And yeah, they had to give him credit for that beautiful move he did on Piastri in Imola and winning that race. But finally, Max Verstappen did something wrong, and they could finally pounce on him. So yeah, that was annoying. Right, let me go back to the chat. Hello, Richard. Gentilis. Yeah, you're 40 minutes late. Dude. Christina says, can you imagine the hate FIA would get if they banned Max? Oh, let's try to imagine that. Now, if it's for something like an unsafe release, then the team would get hate, and people would probably question why a driver would get a penalty point for that. If it's a minor collision where he was only predominantly to blame, then yeah, people will question it. But yeah, Max just needs to be super clean and super careful for the next 2 races, I believe. And then after Austria, the points will go down. And I'm sure he can manage. I'm sure he can do that just fine. And Mavadelo says it depends on a fair penalty. He won't get too much hate. Oh, wait. I missed the whole part of the chat. Unray says F1 is talking about the 2008 championship where Glock lost traction in his Toyota in Brazil. And Hamilton scored that lucky 5th place. And Felipe Massa was champion for 38 seconds, and then he wasn't. Yeah. We are checking. Christina says, I am expecting massive bias against Oscar too once he start beating Norris more. Yeah, I think so too. And I think there will be a situation where, races start running out. So let's say 5-6 races before the end. And then Oscar Piastri is like 30 points ahead. And people start egging on Norris to do more. And then there will be a situation where Piastri is on pole and Norris is behind him, and Oscar doesn't have the best of a start, and Norris needs to get past him, and then they touch, and Norris needs to get a new wing or something, and then that's when people will start hating on Oscar Piastri as well. Um, and it'll be a natural process because that's what Britain does when it comes to British drivers and their opponents. Samantha says, I can't wait because I'm all for Piastri and I would love to see him wipe Norris. Lone Wolf says, I wouldn't mind seeing someone else in the car to see how the car performs. Yeah, I've thought about that too. To see Hadjar and Tsunoda both in that car, to see them both finish outside of the points or something, just to prove how shitty that car is, unless it's in Max Verstappen's hands. Unraced is asking a good question. Is Norris champion material? He seems to break down under the pressure somehow. Now, my last video is about how Max Verstappen is always being a pest more to Norris than to Piastri. And a lot of people said Norris doesn't need Max Verstappen to ruin his championship. That was a very common theme in the comments. And then another theme was that Norris is just unlucky that McLaren decided to have two number one drivers. And what I found interesting is that McLaren could have chosen to keep Ricciardo as a number two driver. You know, yes, he was far off, but Norris was beating him confidently, and I'm sure that now that the car is good, Daniel Ricciardo could have done better as well, but he still wouldn't have beat Norris, right? But they decided to get Oscar Piastri in. And I think one of the reasons for McLaren was that they weren't 100% convinced that Norris has it to be a dominant top driver. Now, in this situation where the McLaren is the strongest car, I think Norris could have benefited from having a Bottas beside him. You know, one that he could comfortably beat in qualifying and in the races, but was close enough to score the points for the constructors. But I think McLaren wasn't sure who was the best driver, or if Norris had it completely, and then they got the opportunity to get Oscar Piastri in, and that turns out to be the ticket. Because, mind you, if Piastri hadn't finished ninth in Australia because of that slip into the grass, he would have been how many points ahead? Yeah, he would have been like 20 points ahead of Norris instead of the 10 points he is now. So yeah, Norris is a great driver, good qualifier, feisty. Like, he dares to throw around his car, but wait, I just lost the chat. Oh, here it is again. I don't think McLaren is 100% convinced, and that's why they got Oscar Piastri in, and he's doing the job now. Christina says, well, Norris has stopped drinking and is now avoiding social media, so we will see. But he was very positive in the last couple of races, so yeah, maybe we'll see a change. But then again, I think one bad result and Norris is depressed again, and he's just blaming himself again. All right. Hank has a good point here as well. He says, Oscar makes a mistake only once. Hank says, did he stop drinking mother's milk? Oof. Let me have a sip of water. Hey, Eddie. Thank you for joining, even though it's another 10 more minutes. But this gives me an opportunity to tell you that Monday afternoon. Monday is a day off in the Netherlands. It's yeah, in Holland we have all these weird Christian holidays, and this is for Pentecost, where the spirit of the Holy Spirit was spread out over the whole world. And we have like a bank holiday Monday. We're off on Monday, and because I'm off on Monday, I'm just gonna do a preview of the race in Montreal. I'm just gonna do some predictions. I might even do that AI prediction thing again. Let me put a poll to see if you guys liked it or not. Um, do oh, do you like the grok prediction? Sure. Nah. I don't care. Okay. So I'm gonna do a live stream, but then early, like I might even do it 12 or 1 o'clock, and that means my Australian viewers, my Australian subscribers, they can watch it as well because it's 6 hours later there. So it's in some parts of Australia it's 10 to 3 now, and a lot of people are missing my live streams because they're asleep. And I love YouTubers, but I'm not staying up till 10 to 3 to watch Tomo speak. Um, yeah, Gentiles. This is just people who've chatted the most in this chat. They get a crown with a number 1 or a number 2 or a number 3. Tanvir, you want me to do like Gemini and then like 3 or 4 different, but that sounds like a lot of work, and I don't feel like that. I just like Grok because I've got the paid version of Twitter, so I have like Grok 3, and it always does a half decent job. So yeah, maybe I'll do that again. I let Grok predict the Montreal Grand Prix, and then I'll be live at probably 1 o'clock Dutch time. So that's 1300 CEST. Yes, Central European Summertime. And then from where you are, you can decide what time it is there. Because I think Polish Eddie, he's in the United States, and it's 6 hours earlier there. So it's like 2 o'clock there or something. Oh, is it who chatted first? I thought it was number of chats, Lone Wolf. All right. So you learn something every day. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, guys, do you have any more questions? I'm a little bit sad that I messed up that screen share thing. That I was just reading out a whole article of Autosport, and you couldn't see it. Like I was even highlighted as I was speaking. Yeah, and Jasper, it must be the number of chats. Lone Wolf has 75 XP, Unraced has 75 XP, and Vegas has 75 XP. No, I don't understand. It's weird. What else do I have to rant about? I think I've got it all off my chest. I got the Autosport article. I got the Race Fans article, I ranted about how British drivers get coddled too much, more than other drivers. Oh, I've got a new video coming out. I've recorded it today, so I'm wearing the same shirt because I recorded it before this live stream. And this video will be about the second Red Bull seat, that it's kind of cursed for reasons, and that there's still drivers who are pissed off that they didn't get it, and there's still young drivers that want that seat desperately, even though it destroys every driver that sits in it. So that's my next video. It'll probably be out tomorrow evening or the day after. So Jasper from Unraced F1, guys, he has a nice historic F1 channel. Check that out. And he's also on Twitter as Unraced F1, always showing old pictures and race cars and naked women. So if you like naked women, go to Unraced F1. And he has a magazine online, also called Unraced F1. Okay, so that's enough plugging. Ben Sulayem. Ben Sulayem recently said that he wanted to get rid, he wanted to put in a budget cap for driver salaries as well. And everybody hated that, of course. The drivers hate it, the teams hate it, the fans hate it. But he's saying this because he wants F1 to make more money, or the FIA, so the staff in the FIA can make more money. And guess who's voting for Ben Sulayem this year again? The people working beneath Ben Sulayem. So Ben Sulayem is a politician through and through, and all the stuff that he says, he's not saying it for the fans. He's saying it for the people who need to vote for him. And he's gathered all these people around him that support him, and they benefit from supporting him. So he'll get re-elected. There's no chance for Carlos Sainz Senior to do it. So that was my Ben Sulayem rant. Gentilis wants to know, is there any hope this season for non-McLaren drivers? Well, there's a hope to win another race or two for Max. And Leclerc might win one and George Russell might win one. But the rest of them will all go to Oscar Piastri, and then say another 3 or so go to Lando Norris. And we'll have a new champion from Australia. Christina says, if Ferrari fixes their rear suspension, they might put pressure on McLaren. Okay, well that would be interesting. I saw a video from F1 Unchained saying that, there's one thing that Ferrari can unlock that would help Lewis Hamilton. He probably titled it that way to get like 100,000 views. Don't know if he got them. But yeah. The race had a video about it as well. Christina says, I would like Susie Wolf to challenge Mohammed bin Sulayem. Yeah, anyone is better than him, but yeah. The thing is that the FIA was losing like 24 million a season, and now they make a 4 million profit. So he's not doing everything wrong, but yeah, he's just an asshole. I don't want to talk politics here, Mavadelo. Gentilis is asking how much more development is left. Are teams willing to do much this year with the new Rex coming up? I've already read that Red Bull will put on small, tiny upgrades but will focus on 2026 now. So they had big hopes for the technical directive, and when that fell through, the results for that, it's over. And that's why I think Mox can take it easy now. He's just gonna go have fun out there without causing a race ban, because especially the next coming races, there's a lot of Orange fans coming to see Max, and it would be a disaster if Max wasn't able to drive in Austria and Hungary and Zandvoort. I haven't decided what race I'm going to this year, but yeah. Christina says, it looks like Merckx gave up already with that engine. I think I read a positive article today about how Mercedes were still screwing on a big upgrade, but I'm not sure. Gentili says, or maybe McLaren's tire cooling trick is discovered and found illegal. That would stir some things. Well, what was in the rear of the McLaren was completely scrutinized by the FIA, and with how the regulations work nowadays, all the information is out in the open for all the other teams to see. So the other teams might have an idea of what McLaren is doing there, and that it's completely legal, and they can develop it themselves for the next season, but it won't make a change for this season. So, yeah. Right, let me finish this. So 81% would like to see grog predictions. Okay, well, that's what I'm doing Monday on Tweede Pinksterdag for the Dutchies. I just want to thank you all for coming into my live stream. It was fun despite one technical error. I need to keep an eye on that the next time I want to screen share. Okay, one more comment from Christina. If FIA didn't disqualify McLaren last year in Baku for that mini DRS, they will not go after McLaren. I think you're right. Right, everybody. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all on Monday. Take care now. Doei doei.